right, well, first of all, I want to take this time to thank the City of Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Black Employee Network Group, Zeba and Zoe, who were with the Councilwoman Jenkins. They did an outstanding job. I also want to thank Councilwoman Jenkins for recognizing the MSR and making sure that we're in this building today for you to see it. And then I also want to thank Velma with the City Civil Rights Department, who came to my office and worked 2 days tirelessly, pulling together all the artifacts and the old pictures and everything that you'll get a chance to see this afternoon. So let's give them all a round of applause. First African American newspaper was called the Freedom Journal. Two gentlemen that owned it was John Rusham and Samuel Cornish. And the first published edition came out March the 16th of 1827, and it ran until 1829. One of the reasons the Freedom Journal existed is similar to today. When we talk about it provides readership for regional, national, and international news, with news that could serve to both entertain and educate. It also sought to improve conditions for over 300,000 newly freed black men and women living in the North. That's why that paper got started. So we're talking today about empowering the youth always empowers and inspires me. I enjoy doing things with the youth. My grandfather started the newspaper when he was 8 years old. Actually didn't start this newspaper, he started a newspaper when he was 8 years old in school. And it was just a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that his school had at that time. When I look at the similarities in my grandfather and myself, I started working at the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder, then known as the Minneapolis Spokesman and the St. Paul Recorder. And I started when I was 8 years old. So as I was reading this book, I was starting to see the connection between him and I, and it was very interesting. But he started the Minneapolis Spokesman, downtown Minneapolis, and the St. Paul Recorder, downtown St. Paul. Now, my grandfather was a forward thinker, so he often said that in the book, he said, I didn't have enough money to start one newspaper, so I started two. And I'm like, I don't quite get the logic, but as I thought about it, I realized that it was double income. It was double advertising sales. So he continued to run the Minneapolis Spokesman and the St. Paul Recorder until 2009. Well, actually, in 1976, is when he passed. And then my grandmother, Leuna Newman, and my mother, my mother, Norma Williams, who's here with me today. And my uncle, Wallace Jackman, on her side, were working with her at the paper all along as I was, but I was in and out of school, going to college and that kind of thing. In 2009, I was talking to my grandmother and the staff there, because I kind of had self-appointed myself as the office manager, and we were talking about how the African-American community has grown. So it's not just Minneapolis and it's not just St. Paul. I wanted all the African Americans to feel this was their paper as well. So if they weren't in just the two demographic areas, they didn't feel that. So we merged them to become one. And today it's called the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder newspaper. The Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder has done many things over the years to inspire the youth. My grandfather, actually, when he first was starting the newspaper, a lot of the youth in the neighborhood would stop by and visit him, and he always took the time. I know one of the gentlemen, Philip Crawford, was telling me a story. He was a trouble kid in school, and he was in school at Central High, right up the street from the Spokesman office, and his teachers was like, you know what, you're disruptive, here's a pen and paper, go interview somebody in the neighborhood, and because right now you're causing too much chaos in the classroom. So he said he was on his way home, and he happened to stop by walk past the Spokesman office, and he looked in, and he goes, I don't know what this is, maybe I'll go in here. So he walks into the Spokesman office, and the woman at the front desk greets him, and he goes, hi, I guess I need to interview somebody. She goes, well, what do you mean you guess? Well, what is this? He's like, a news, she says, it's a newspaper. And he goes, oh, okay. Well, then she said, would you like to interview the publisher? He's like, the publisher? And he's thinking, no way, so they take him in and introduce him to my grandfather. He tells me the story. He said he walked in and he kind of sloped down in the chair and he kind of sitting back because he's not really wanting to be there. And my grandfather says, so what is your name, young man? He goes, so my name is Philip Crawford. He goes, Mr. Crawford, please sit up. I'm Mr. Newman and I want to talk to you. So he gave him a sense of pride just saying, calling him by Mr. Crawford. He said that he'll never forget that story. So as people come through or walk past the Spokesman or come in the Spokesman, young people, I always take time. Because we never know how we can empower one young person by just taking that time to give them. So it's always important for me to give the young folks today as much time as they need. They call me, I stop what I'm doing, I sit down and talk to them. As you are going through life and you're starting to get your education and you look back at the MSR, you may consider that as a place that you want to work and write one day. And we encourage you to continue to carry the voices that my grandfather has carried over the many years. And the storytelling of the Black press is phenomenal. And unfortunately, some of the stories are repeating themselves. So my grandfather had to talk a lot about righting the wrong. There was a lot of things going on in the Black community then that made him need to write the newspapers. As a matter of fact, when he left Kansas City, Missouri, when he was 17 to come to Minnesota to start the papers, he knew that Kansas City didn't give him the opportunity, so he needed to come to the North where he felt he had more of an opportunity. One of his experiences, he said when he first came to Minnesota, he went to a restaurant, ordered a hamburger, and it was laced with salt. He knew then that his work had just begun. So today, the MSR is known, the building itself is known, again, thank you, Andrea, for finishing what Elizabeth Glidden began, historical landmarks. So our Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder office is now considered a historical landmark. We also have a street that's right behind Kmart right off of Lake Street that's named after my grandfather, Cecil Newman Lane. Just recently, however, which I'm super proud of, with the work of Zoe Zebra and Elizabeth, Councilwoman Jenkins, they've ended up helping us to get the street named after my grandmother. So now 4th Avenue is named the Leuna Q. Newman Way. So when I think about all the historical things that are happening, we're celebrating 85 years. We got the historical landmark for the building. Now the 4th Avenue is named from 36th to 42nd after my grandmother. And now we have this huge exhibit that you're going to get a chance to see this afternoon that's right here in City Hall. And it's been here for the whole month. It started January 31st, and they're keeping it all the way till the end of this month. It really shows the love that I feel the city has for the Black press. The other things that we do is we provide stories from local writers that attend events, so we're actually providing you with real news. They attend the events, they're part of the community, they tell the stories that are not covered by mainstream media, which is why we need to exist today. We create original content that provides unique information through our readership with regular columnists, which write on health like our one and only Dr. Crutchfield. We got Dr. Golden. We got Charles Hallman, Larry Fitzgerald, Mitch McDonald, who write on our sports page. We got Dr. Hightower, Vina Cave, which does voices for racial justice, along with Kevin Reed. So we got a lot of people that take pride and dignity in writing columns in our newspaper every week, and they do it because, first of all, they do it exclusively for us, but they understand that the legacy that the paper has in the Black community. So as we look out today and to talk about inspiring the youth, we hope that you make sure to grab some papers that we do have in the exhibit today. Take a look at the paper. You're going to see yourselves in them in a different form. Absolutely, he's waving a paper back there now. But we're always writing about the community, whether it's the youth, whether it's things that are going on that that you need to be informed about. We hope our stories can educate and enlighten you and inspire you to become the young people and the adults that you will become one day. And we're proud to have you as far as our community. And anytime you want to stop in and say hello to me at the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder, I welcome you and my staff welcomes you. And we all open our doors to anybody that's interested in either becoming a writer, doing a community column, just a piece in their opinion page, any form that you want to be involved. Subscribe today and get the paper, support the Black press, and thank you so much for having me out.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Velma Corbel, and I had the pleasure of spending some days with Tracy and her staff back in January, collecting all of the newspapers and artifacts that you'll see in the exhibit. And for me, it really became a labor of love, because as I was there, there's another young man there from Minneapolis Institute of Art, Donald Thomas. I don't know if he's here. Desiree Cole, who was a City of Minneapolis employee in Race and Equity, was in the building with me. It was a lot of fun. It was educational. And Tracy and her team opened up the Spokesman-Recorder offices, and they were warm and welcoming, and we just had a good time. I actually had my husband there one night, who was helping to frame some of the newspapers that we're using in the exhibit. You don't understand, or maybe you don't realize the treasures and legacy institutions that we have in the city of Minneapolis unless you get out and get really engaged with them. And you see the people behind these institutions and the love and the hard work and the dedication that has caused an institution like the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder to have existed for the last 85 years. It just turned out to be a lot of fun for me. And I want to thank Tracy and her team for welcoming us into the building. But I'm here today because about 5 years ago, the city of Minneapolis, through its Civil Rights Department, created an award called the History Makers at Home. And this year, Tracy Williams Dillard is being awarded a History Maker at Home. And so I wanted to make sure the award ceremony is actually next Thursday at noon right here in the Rotunda. But I wanted to make sure, because Tracy has her mother here and friends here, and I think her daughter eventually found a parking space and made it here. And so we want to make sure that we presented Tracy with her award today, while we have people here from the Spokesman-Recorder and folks from her family who can help her celebrate this. So I want to invite Tracy up. This is kind of an awkward little setup here, so hopefully we won't trip over cables. Okay, so Brian is going to grab it for me. So we're going to present Tracy Williams Dillard with the City of Minneapolis History Maker at Home Award. And so we'll come over here in case anybody wants to take a picture.
You know, I'm overwhelmed. I always pray for no tears, because my work is a labor of love. And every time when I get a chance to talk about it, I try not to cry. But this is quite nice to get this award. And I'll be a part of the whole group of 6 that's receiving the award. So I hope for those that have lunch down here, you come back. I'll be here next Thursday to get the other award that goes along with this. So I got a double one. So in the meantime, I thank you so much, Velma. Thank you so much for the city of Minneapolis. Thank you all for coming out and spending your afternoon with me on your lunch break, because I know a lot of you got to get back to work. For those of you who don't have to leave right away, we're going to take a tour down there to the exhibit, and I'll be able to tell you a little bit about some of the things in the exhibit along the way. Thank you so much.